What do you think Prime Minister Netanyahu is trying to accomplish here? What is his ultimate goal, and what might his calculation be in breaking this ceasefire, which now puts both Israeli hostages and Palestinians in danger?
I think Anna, the simplest answer is that he wants the same thing as when he began this war. He wants the utter destruction as a political and military force of Hamas. Hamas, in the exchange of hostages for prisoners who've been held in Israel, made a display of force. You remember the pictures of Hamas fighters with their guns lined up and the hostages posed on a stage. That infuriated Israelis, and it also showed them that Hamas isn't dead yet. It's still a force in Gaza. And I think this two-month ceasefire just didn't convince Israelis that their fundamental war aim had been achieved yet. So they've gone back to war. Sadly, to me, they still don't have a clear plan for the day after fighting ends, whenever that is. And that's the key, really, to getting stability and security for both sides in the future.
Yeah, and I just keep thinking about the idea that we've talked about so often, which is you can kill individual fighters, but can you kill the ideology? And I recall right before Secretary Blinken, former Secretary of State, left office, he had mentioned that the number of fighters who were killed had already been replaced. The White House did say Netanyahu consulted with the Trump administration before this latest round of strikes. What is Trump's calculation here?
Well, the Trump administration, I know from the conversations this week, has been thinking anew about its own plan for the day after, its plan for the reconstruction of Gaza. President Trump offered his own grandiose plan. We describe it as building the Riviera on the Mediterranean, rebuild Gaza, and accompanying that with forced relocations of the Palestinians living there. That's not going to fly, but the administration is still thinking about alternatives to the reconstruction governance plan that Egypt has put forward as the Arab lead, saying that needs modifications. So the administration is still very much in the mediation game. Steve Witkoff, you'll remember, President Trump's special envoy, joined Brett McGurk and the Biden administration people in the final days of a negotiation that led to the ceasefire that now appears to be collapsing. So they're invested in this. They're trying to think, as everybody is, what next, how to get the process back on track, how to get the American hostages who's there out, how to get this back on a track towards resolution.
David, let's talk about Iran. Trump wrote a personal letter to Iran's supreme leader a couple weeks ago with the hope of starting nuclear talks, and then sanctioned its oil industry. Iran said today it will not negotiate under threats of sanctions. You reported in February that Israel wants to attack those facilities, that the Biden administration was considering it, and that Israel had said they would do so with or without U.S. support. How is the Trump administration policy towards Iran shaping up?
So the Trump's letter to Ayatollah Khamenei is basically, an ultimatum. I'm told has a fixed timeline in it, and it says you must agree to get rid of your nuclear enrichment facilities, any weaponization work that you've been doing has to stop, and you must address the issue of your missiles that can strike Israel, Europe. They're pretty sophisticated now. And so they're waiting for a response. And the threat is, if you don't say yes, we're prepared to support Israeli military action against you. And that clock is ticking. I think the attacks on the Houthis in Yemen have been meant as a demonstration to Iran. The U.S. is prepared to use a lot of force if you don't begin to pay attention.
David Ignatius, appreciate you being with us. Thanks so much for the conversation.